Edge's just one day reign. Deborah, of course, is out in a bikini, and Meltzer writes, "You're not going to find many women pushing 40 who look like that, or pushing 25 for that matter." Eventually, Deborah distracts Edge to take off by taking off her jacket, and Jarrett knocks Edge into Deborah, who falls on the apron. While all this is going on, Gangrel snaps Edge's neck on the top rope, and Jarrett pins him using the reverse Russian leg sweep. After the match, Austin hits the ring and gives Jarrett a stunner. What do you remember about this match?
I remember Austin, the most memorable thing, the finish, and Austin coming out and stunning Jeff and kind of being out, because it was a lot of talk from Jeff's original interview back, and the blasphemous, and would Steve ever work with him or not? And Steve did it. He came out and did this. So that's all you remember, and that's all you were meant to remember.
And he did the little mocking of the strut, which is pretty famous.
Yes. And it's funny, I just watched this the other day, and that was, is about as awkward as you can get with Steve doing the strut, and everything was hilarious.
July 26th on Raw, Jeff would pull actor Ben Stiller out of the crowd and attack him. This is to cross promote a movie, I'm sure, but how was Ben to deal with?
Absolutely great. Ben and Drew Carey were two guys that I remember showing up, didn't have a big entourage with them, and sat out with the boys and watched the monitor in the back where everybody kind of gathered around. Wasn't a big star, and was willing to do any and everything that we asked him to do. Great guy.
On August 2nd, European champ D'Lo Brown would get the victory over Jeff to win the Intercontinental title on Raw. Why in the world was D'Lo a double champion here? This seems out of place, Bruce. What say you?
D'Lo was getting over, man. He had the head bob, and D'Lo was getting over. So, man, let's try something. Let's go with him. Why not? Throw a little more steam in the engine.
Let's talk about August 15th on Heat. Meat defeated Jeff Jarrett. What's your favorite Meat match?
Jesus, I'd like to forget every Meat match I ever saw.
Meat's now
the best gimmick for Sean Stasiak would have been Mr. Paranoid.
Meat's now a chiropractor. So would that make him Dr. Meat?
Dr. Paranoid.
Now, I assume you're talking about Paranoid because he taped all his conversations.
Just really paranoid.
Yeah, give me an example.
We'll leave it at that.
No. You brought the shit up and you said it twice, and I let it go the first time. He
just believed that everything was a conspiracy against me. Believed everybody was talking about him. Believed everyone was conspiring against him to hold him down, and was just out of his friggin' mind.
August 16th, The Observer reports that Steve Austin turned down working with both Jeff Jarrett and Billy Gunn, claiming that neither were over enough to work with him. Here's what Kevin Kelly said once upon a time. "I was there when Jeff Jarrett returned and came out and gave his famous little shoot promo thing in the ring where he said he felt Austin 316 was blasphemous, which is what Jeff's true opinion was. But Jeff was instructed by Vince Russo to speak his piece. When Jeff came through the curtain, Austin was pretty much right there, and he said, 'You're talking about my merchandise, you're talking about my money, and I don't like it.' What Jeff probably should have done was gone to Steve and said, 'Hey, listen, this is what they want me to do, and what do you think about it?' Steve Austin harbored a lot of bad feelings towards Jeff Jarrett because of the fact that Steve was starved when he was down in Memphis, and while Jeff was catered to as the Booker's son, Jerry had this huge mansion in Hendersonville, and both of them lived the good life while Steve was getting around $40 a night. Austin has defended his stance. And here's what he says. He wasn't physical enough. He didn't hit the ropes hard enough. And it wasn't a case of me being able to bring him up, more of a case of him bringing me down because of how hot I was. I'm not out there UFC shoot fighting, but Jesus Christ, lay some stuff in on me, bust my mouth, whatever. That's the way I did it when I was feeding comebacks on DX and all those guys. I mean, those guys walking backstage would be with busted lips and noses, loose teeth. I was throwing sledgehammers in there and people were going crazy. That's just the way it was. He can't hit the ropes hard enough to bust an egg. I had a violent physical work style. I mean, Jesus, you want to work with me, bring it. And then we get to the Gund Arena and they say, okay, we want you to work a match with Jeff Jarrett. And I said, what? You want me to work with who? And they said, Jeff Jarrett. I said, I think Vince Russo was telling me this. I said, all right, come here. So we walk into McMahon's room, and it might have been me, Vince, Jim Ross, and about 5 other people. And I said, fuck this. MSF. These are the best damn cussing jobs. I said, I told you sons of bitches I never wanted to work with the guy, and now you're going to make me come in here and play the bad guy. Meanwhile, Jeff Jarrett said this. Steve Austin has drawn a ton of money and throws a very phony punch. This business is all about perception. So I don't really understand that one still to this day. There's a lot of things that you can pinpoint or complain about in Jeff Jarrett, but his in-ring work, I've never heard that. This statement about me hitting the ropes confuses me more than him not wanting to work with me. What say you, Bruce? This whole he doesn't hit the ropes hard enough sounds like the fucking dumbest thing I've ever heard, but I can't tweet that to Austin because he blocked me.
Well, that's Steve's opinion, and that's how Steve felt, and Steve was the main man. So if Steve doesn't want to work with you, he ain't going to work with you. And it just boils down to that. He can say whatever he wants. If that's how he felt, that's what he wants to say. That's his prerogative, and that's his opinion. I think that Jeff was a damn good worker. I think Steve was a damn good worker. I agree with Steve as far as throwing sledgehammers. Steve threw his shit in. He didn't want to work with Jeff, and that was the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. He wasn't happy about it, wasn't going to do it, and there was no more negotiation beyond that. And Russo would do things a lot of times where he would just write things in thinking that people were going to do it. Steve was one guy that would put his foot down and say no.
In mid-August, Jeff's putting over D'Lo on the house shows, and then we get to SummerSlam, August 22nd, 1999 in Minneapolis. A huge business again, and Jarrett wins both the Intercontinental and the European from D'Lo in about 7.5 minutes. They're teasing a breakup here big time with Double J and Deborah, including Jarrett ordering Deborah to leave, but then, of course, Deborah comes back out with D'Lo. Eventually, of course, Mark Henry's involved. They do the big swerve, and Jarrett gets the pin. So Jarrett, Deborah, and Henry all leave together, 2.25 stars. So at this point, Jeff becomes the first wrestler in WWF history to win the Intercontinental title 6 times. What'd you think of the match and the decision to take the belts off D'Lo here?
Well, actually, I do remember this. I thought it was good, and shout out to Mark Henry, who gave me a call today on my way back from Austin. But I thought it worked. It told a nice story and was able to kind of give new life, a little bit more new life to Jeff. So again, when you have something in the hodgepodge of all the other, stuff going on at times, and you can settle down a little bit, I thought this kind of worked.
All right, let's get to it. The next night, as crazy as this sounds, Jeff just gives the European title to Mark Henry. So there's that. Deborah also gets an assistant in Miss Kitty, Stacy Carter, who is, of course, the real life wife of Jerry Lawler, becomes Deborah's assistant. Why? Again, we started talking about this show with lots of Tennessee stuff. Why is Stacy in this spot here?
Stacy was looking to work. Stacy was a good looking girl and more TNA, not TNA, but tits and ass.
Jeff starts to attack women at this point, which sort of begins his feud with Chyna. Where did this idea come from? How comfortable was Jeff in doing it? Obviously it's a different time. But I mean, he gets on a roll here with it. On Raw, he defeats Jacqueline on September 6th. On September 9th, he pulls the Fabulous Moolah in the ring and smashes her with a guitar. Then he puts Mae Young in the figure 4 while Deborah and Miss Kitty are begging him to stop. Whose idea was it? This feels sort of Andy Kaufman-like, which is
bro.
Yeah, help me understand.
Yeah, bro. Andy Kaufman, very Andy Kaufman-like, and I think this was a collaboration of both Russo and Jeff together just to try and make Jeff a modern-day Andy Kaufman, and Jeff coming from Memphis and seeing what that did for business there. But the thing was a celebrity. But I think it was more a collaboration of the two and trying to come up with something new and different.
So September 13th, they have a Raw where Luna Vachon is in a match with Jeff Jarrett, and Ivory smashes a guitar over Luna's head. So Luna gets the win by DQ, and then Jeff puts Lillian Garcia in the figure 4 when she announces that Luna was the winner. A few days later on SmackDown, Jeff would attack Hollywood actress Cindy Margolis and put her in the figure 4, and then he would high five women's champion Ivory and then put her in the figure 4 too. I don't know why this tickles me, but it does. Later on, Jarrett would wrestle Test and try to put Stephanie McMahon in the figure 4. Shane stopped it. September 20th, on Raw, Jeff Jarrett would attack the makeup lady backstage and put her in the... Why does this tickle me so much? Whose idea is it for him to just Cindy Margolis, Moolah, Mae Young, the makeup lady, Lillian Garcia? This is so silly.
As much as I hate it, you got to admit it was entertaining shit.
Oh, it's so funny.
I mean, yeah, the makeup and all that stuff. Yeah, it got to be how ridiculous could we make it?
Tess and Stephanie have a tag match against Jeff and Deborah wouldn't tag in, which leads to Stephanie pinning Jeff Jarrett. So there you go. The Intercontinental Champion is losing to the boss's daughter.
So what do? You put the figure 4 on your tag team partner.
September 23rd, Jeff attacked the female stage manager and put her in the figure 4. Later in the show, all the women that Jarrett has attacked show up with Chyna and they all attack him. And this takes us to the Unforgiven pay-per-view. It's September 26, 1999. It's from Charlotte. It's not a sellout, but it's drawing huge business. Over $500,000 at the gate, 93,000 in merch sales. Interesting match here. Jarrett beats Chyna by DQ in 11.5 minutes to retain the Intercontinental title. Harvey Whippleman is the referee. And Jarrett dumped Deborah and told her not to come out, which basically teased the finish, of course. Chyna uses a power bomb on him at some point, tries a Hurricane Rana, but Jarrett blocks it. Lots of stuff going on here. Meltzer would say, Jarrett's overselling here looks silly. Chyna hit Jarrett with a chair and bulldogged him on the Spanish announcer's table, but it didn't break. Chyna tried a pedigree, but Jarrett blocked it and catapulted her into the ref. Miss Kitty went to give Jarrett the guitar, but Moolah and Young hopped the rail and hit the ring and began pounding on Jarrett. This was still pretty campy, so it was entertaining, although the joke got old by the end of the night. This silliness continues, and Meltzer would call it reasonably entertaining, 2.5 stars. Any memories of this?
Oh, again, it was entertaining, gaga, ha-ha. And that's all it was. It was a moment. It was a moment in the show where you had levity and you had your gaga.
After the match here, Prichard comes out and tells Whippleman about the finish, and they show it on the video wall. So Whippleman reverses the decision. And then Chyna beats Prichard up after the match, including delivering a low blow and a pedigree. What'd you think?
Again, is levity. I think that the best point of the whole thing was going back to the video wall.
Yeah.
What I used to love is when guys you'd have a run in and they'd either be looking at the ramp or looking at the video wall, and you see the guy coming down, which is supposed to be surprised.
Yeah.
Or when they would turn the referee to the video wall side,
so he could see
and they would do something behind his back on the other side. I'm like, just look up.
Yeah.
Crazy.
This is
applying
Chyna's
logic to an illogical situation.
This is Chyna's second pay-per-view match where she's wrestled in 1999. She wrestled Road Dogg at King of the Ring a few months prior to this. And you jokingly mentioned before that Chyna felt like she should be wrestling for the world title.
I'm joking.
How did the idea come about for her to be wrestling as wrestling men? And then what did you think of her performance?
I thought her performance was fine. I thought her performance was good, but again, it was female versus a male, and I didn't feel that. I didn't like it. I mean, again, I didn't feel that, especially at the time, that there was a place for it. Vince Russo and Vince McMahon obviously felt otherwise, and they did it. And it became levity and it became entertainment for what it was.
Why was Tom Prichard tagged here for this spot? Is this because he knew it wouldn't hurt him and he knew how to handle it? I mean, what's the point?
He didn't care.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entertainment.
October 2nd at Rebellion, once again, a UK pay-per-view, Jeff Jarrett defeats D'Lo Brown to retain the title. Chyna would defeat Jeff Jarrett by disqualification. We head towards October 4th. This is Raw now. We've got Moolah and Mae Young defeating Ivory and Miss Kitty. And Miss Kitty is actually forced to take Jeff Jarrett's place. And after Miss Kitty gets pinned, Jeff attacks her, puts her in the figure 4. October 7th, SmackDown. Ivory defeats Miss Kitty in a mud wrestling match that was set up by Jeff. And then Jeff pushed Moolah and Mae Young into the mud. Chyna appeared and then kicks Jarrett into the mud too. When you guys did these silly mud matches, was anybody into this, and who dreaded it the most?
Oh boy. Probably the prop guy dreaded it the most because, see, you have to use a certain kind of mud. Can't just use any kind of mud. You have to use this organic mud.
Working mud,
yeah. God, I just hated that cliche, the mud matches and the oil matches and all that crap. But that's me.
October 11th, Jeff would attack Chyna, put her in a laundry bin, and push it off a ledge with her inside. Some of this shit's just so silly. Here we go. No Mercy pay-per-view happened.
I didn't book that shit.
October 17th, 1999. We're in Cleveland, Ohio. And the rumor and innuendo is that Jeff's contract expired one day before New Mercy, and he was unhappy with his role in the WWF and he didn't re-sign. So the day of No Mercy, he literally holds up Vince for what's been called a large sum of money to appear on the show. Not all that different from what the Ultimate Warrior allegedly did at SummerSlam 91. You were here. What really happened? Unfortunately, over the years, Jim Ross has been kind of finger pointed out here and singled out as being, this is his fault. Did JR miss it? Did JR have a verbal from the guy? How did this come to be where he's the champ, figured into a major pay-per-view, and now he has all the leverage?
Well, JR didn't miss it. No, I mean, we all knew, and there were some of us that were louder than others saying, hey, why are we continuing to go on when we don't have a contract extension or a contract or something in place? JR took someone for their word, and he trusted Jerry Jarrett, and I guess he learned his lesson. But I think in the big picture, the people to blame were Vince and Russo for insisting that it go on, and for everybody taking, and again, I go back to Jerry a lot on this because Jerry's the one that was negotiating a lot of it, and he's the one that didn't keep his word and wasn't truthful. So JR was doing his job. JR was doing what he was told. He did everything in his power to get it done. And he's the fall guy. That's the position. That's the heat position. If shit goes good, Vince is a genius. If it goes bad, you're a dumbass.
So you guys show up to the building that day, and what happens?
Jeff went in and met with Vince, and then met with JR, and they got him a check that day for whatever it was that he wanted. And he went out, he did the match with Chyna, put her over like $1 million, and left. And I remember, Jeff coming up, and by this time, Jeff and I had really gotten over all of our stuff, and we were cool. And I remember him coming up, and he said goodbye to every single person in the building that night. And
Jeff's version, I shouldn't speak for him. The version I've heard is that Jeff just wanted what was owed to him, and that sometimes some pay-per-view residuals and some house show checks and all that would kind of trail. And he was concerned that if he went and showed up on WCW TV, given the circumstance and the Monday Night War and all that, that some of that money would have been even slower to come, if it ever came at all. So he just wanted whatever he had already earned in one lump sum that night. Is that, to the best of your understanding, the way it went down?
That's the best of my understanding. Yeah. From Jeff's side. Yes. And frankly, I don't disagree with that. You know what I mean? I don't disagree with him wanting that.
I don't disagree with it either. I just think it's funny that the narrative gets pushed out there, that he held Vince up for a bunch of money. He didn't hold him up for a bunch of money. He wanted what he had earned.
But again, at the time, it was he held Vince up and he wasn't going to go out until he got his money. And at the time, you know, it all got put on JR. And it is not, 100%, man. It's that one can't be put on JR. That one was Vince, trying to salvage something and make it all work.